Yo, what's up, guys? I just wanted to record a quick update about my Vaal skill build. As you can see here in the background, Vaal skills are back, and they're absolutely broken. Essentially, there's been this new ring that's been introduced to the game with this patch, and it drops from its series. And it's called the Triumvirate Authority. So the Triumvirate Authority is a skill that basically allows you to have, as you can see on the screen, 4 charges of Vaal skills. It is a 1 link. It's an unset ring, so you can slot your Vaal skill gem inside of it, and it allows you to have, more souls gained and less soul gain prevention, as well as other modifiers, which I'll get into later. This ring was explored in depth by a friend of mine, Jazzo. You can see here he put out a post around 12 days ago, basically stating all of the benefits that we can get from this ring itself. So being able to achieve 0 soul gain prevention time, multiple uses, as well as the more damage it provides from the skill gem itself, and +2 to targeted Vaal skill gems. Apparently there's been sort of a little exploit, let's just say, that was also showcased by Younggrown here, where you could socket a Vaal skill gem into your ring, and it would also apply to your main 6 link. And I'd like to explain why that is the case in this video. So there was a time when people would charge Vaal souls into a specific skill gem in Path of Exile, believe it or not. In that skill gem, you could basically store Vaal uses, right? So imagine that you had 3 Vaal hastes. You could charge them throughout a map and then unsocket them. And then when you get to a boss or something like that, you use one of the uses, and then you socket the other one in it and you use it again, and then you socket the other one in and you use it again, because there was essentially a Vaal container which was stored within the skill gem itself, which essentially was an exploit that people were using a while back to get permanent immunity with Vaal Immortal Call or things like that. But to counteract that, GGG made it so the container is now a global thing, right? Vaal souls are stored in a global container, ensuring that you cannot swap out skill gems and have permanent uptime on Vaal variants of the skill gem itself. And I suspect that is why we are able to use the Triumvirate ring to modify the global container by socketing the same Vaal skill gem in your 6 link and in the ring itself. So you're able to gain the benefits of 30% reduced Vaal soul cost, as well as the +1 additional use by having both the skill gem socketed in the ring and in the container itself. So as you know, I posted a video about this yesterday. I've been theory crafting this build for about a week now with Jazzo, and we've been trying to come up with what is the best way to make use of this ring. And we were experimenting with this, let's say, like, exploit with the ring, and we found out that essentially it did work as long as you have this gem socketed both in the ring and in your 6 link. We also experimented with having 2 rings. It does not, unfortunately, double the amount of souls or anything like that. So you get into sort of a really weird scenario where I think the code really shows its flaws. I think the coding that they've done for Vaal skills is quite dated, and they'll probably have to go back and recode some things, because at the moment it's just spaghetti. And yeah, well, as you can see here in the background, the build is popping off. It's really, really good. The build is actually just way beyond my expectations of how strong it is, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, min-maxing it and things like that. So I highly recommend you try this build. It is subject to mid-league nerfs, but here I would like to showcase why that doesn't matter. So I designed my build be pretty much only reliant on the ring itself. It does not need a 6 link itself. So right now we are making use of this weird interaction between the ring and the 6 link, where I'm socketing my main link in my 6 link, as you can see here, and here there's level 1 Stormcall, which is setting the Vaal container it's setting my global Vaal container to Vaal Stormcall. However, if I were to put this just in there, so I am now running on a 1 link, I still get 4 uses out of that, and I'm still doing an incredible amount of damage, as I'll showcase here in a quick map. Good thing I have some prepared, so that's nice. Yeah, we'll showcase that in a map real quick. I will also, since we have already shown what the gameplay is like with Headhunter, I would like to say that it's not necessary to use a Headhunter, and I will show that by taking the belt off, and we'll go showcase what it's like in a map real quick. So the build is a Pathfinder, so we have a lot of flask charges. The flasks come back really fast, and the character itself has around 240 movement speed. We wait until our Soul Ripper comes up, and this is what the gameplay looks like. The build is very, very fast. It does a lot of damage, it has good coverage, and it uses Impulsa and Stormskiff with cold conduction, so that you can get these very, very nice explosions and freeze prolifs and things like that. And yeah, in turn, the build is a really fast mapper and is an insane single target, and it's really, really fun to play. So yeah, this is what the build looks like on a 1-link with just the Triumvirate Authority. And it's honestly insane. It's honestly just absurd. And I can show you the single target damage here against the boss, and the boss just disappears. So yeah, that's what that looks like. I'm gonna exit the map so I can talk about some of the mechanics about this ring. So the ring has a different variants to it. It will have 3 to 4 additional modifiers, right? In this ring, I have chosen to take the 150% more damage to Vaal socketed skill gems. Damage with hits from socketed Vaal skill gems is lucky, which in turn is about 15% more damage, and as well as the 30% less soul cost, less soul use, and 1 additional charge, which lets us have, as you can see, 4 charges of Vaal Stormcall, so we can put 4 out. It's also using, of course, Soul Catcher, which is, you know, making us not incur soul gain prevention, as well as giving us an insane amount of crit and things like that. And other than that, we use the Bottle Faith since we're using Zealotry. Wise Oak, since I went through the effort of triple balancing, but if you don't triple balance, then you can just use it in Series Promise. That is completely fine. And then a Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline so that we can achieve good speed. Because of the, essentially how much flask effect we get as a Pathfinder. Makes us get really, really speedy, which is super nice. I'll showcase the gear real quick. This one I crafted with Corroded Etheric and Bloodstained Fossils. You can craft it with 4 socket resonators, but I recommend 3 socket resonators. This combination made it so that I was more likely to hit Magisters. I unveiled the cold damage and the double damage, which essentially the cold damage is actually 7% less damage over the spell damage. Non-damage is extra chaos. So non-chaos damage is extra chaos, which is the craft that you can find for 1 exalt. I hope I have it. This one here, but I have the lower rank of it. But essentially, this is the craft that I'm talking about, which rolls up to like 100 or 90% spell damage and 10% non as extra. So yeah, actually that cold damage is not that good. What are you looking for when you're crafting this staff? Just Vaal skills require 40% less souls per use. This is essential to the build. And Magisters, which is +2. But what you could do is you could just fracture a +3 staff and then roll the same mod combination and just look for T1 lightning damage to spells. It's also really good. And Vaal soul requirement, and then multi-mod off that. So the staff really doesn't have to be expensive at all. It can be quite easy to craft, honestly. It's just a bunch of Bloodstained Fossil spam, and that's crafting now, boys. That's how it works post-harvest, so, you know, take it or leave it. We're using the Stormskiffs with Spell Crit Corruption. This is because the way Stormcall works is every time you put a Stormcall down, it rolls for whether it crits or it doesn't, and then the entire duration of the Stormcall, which is 21 hits, I believe, will either be a crit or a non-crit. So it basically snapshots critical strikes. So we want to essentially make 100% sure that we are crit capped with this build, and we also ensure that through our Watcher's Eye and the Bottled Faith. So the Bottled Faith radius is also scaled by Flask Effect, so you can see it's huge. And also Zealotry will ensure that we have Consecrated Ground under uniques and rares and things like that. So yeah. We're using a Huber circlet with 30% reduced Vaal storm call duration. This is essential. The Vaal storm call duration, you want to shorten that to as much as possible so the skill doesn't feel clunky and so that it condenses its damage into a shorter window. Essentially, it's a more damage multiplier and also a quality of life upgrade. So yeah, I awaken orb the suffixes and Maven orb them. You don't have to Maven orb them. It's just 3 extra crit and 2 extra reduced reservation, which is not essential at all. You could just essentially just grab this point here and you don't need the Maven orbed helmet. And for the prefixes, I did suffixes cannot be changed and reforged life until I had a good tier life, and then just finished it off with a craft. And I still have to slam it actually. So yeah. With the amulet, I have to be honest. I got really lucky. I was just Awakener orbing, +1 intelligence, +1 lightning skill gems, and I ended up actually hitting a crit multi suffix. I had to annul a strength suffix, T6 strength. I did prefixes cannot be changed and I annulled, and I hit the strength. So then I multi-modded off that with minimum frenzy charges and life. I decided to put a minimum frenzy charge here because I am using inner conviction, which gives me more damage per power charge. And so that makes it so I cannot generate frenzy charges. So the only way to get frenzy charges is through means like this. Although you could also put, you know, all res or something like that if you're struggling with resistance. But if you're not using Headhunter, which by the way, I recommend because Headhunter is not really that good with the build. But if you're not using Headhunter, you're not going to need any resistance here. You'll feel your resistance there, and that'll be completely fine. And the build will be much more flexible because I was really much struggling with resistance. I had to get resistance on jewels. But that is also what allowed me to triple balance my resistance. Nice. I am using a Militant Faith High Templar Dominus. That's because of the inner conviction there. The thing about these jewels is that it'll have 2 explicits, as you can see, the unique modifiers, 2 to all res per devotion and non-curse effect per devotion. So right now I have 100 devotion, so that means 10 effective non-curse auras, which is a lot, as well as 20% all res. When I take this off, you can see I go down 20 all res, and yeah, I mean it's really insane, honestly. 20 all res and 10 effect non-curse aura, as well as giving me inner conviction. It's just really good. So what you can do actually is you can buy jewels with these 2 explicits, and you don't have to worry about you know, new faithful converted by High Templar, because when you divine these jewels, it'll only really divine, you know, who it's witnessed by or whatever. So the suffixes will stay the same, whereas that, you know, carved, glorified, that'll change. So you can save actually a lot of currency by just divining these jewels. Aside for that, we're taking Phase Acro and Wind Dancer. We are near, we are actually, once we have Elusive up, we are near dodge cap. So when I press my flasks, you can see we are 56-40, so we'll be around 70-60, 70-61, I think 71-61, yeah. When we have Elusive up, so that makes us very, you know, evasive, let's just say. And then when we do get hit, we take 20% less damage, and we are less likely to get hit anyways, like going forward. So essentially, this form of defense works really well. Not hardcore friendly, but I die very rarely. I can basically stand still in the middle of ultimatums, and that's completely fine. We're using the Storm Rider Cold Conduction. Storm Rider allows us to gain power charges. Cold Conduction makes it so enemies are shocked and chilled. We're using that in combination with Blast Freeze. Blast Freeze makes our freezes proliferate, which helps with our Impulsa chains. Yeah. So we use that in combination also with Storm Skiffs, because there's a line that says, well, like essentially Impulsa cannot shock, right? So what you want to have is you want to have Storm Skiffs, which shocks you inflict spread to enemies within a radius of 15. So this basically bypasses the whole Impulsa thing, and it makes Impulsa turn into an explode chest like clear, which is really nice. We use a staff, by the way, as well, because of Serpent Stance and Counterweight, which are insane. On top of that, I have Disorienting Display. This is to have AoE blind. So yeah, 10% chance you're going to be using a bunch of skills, a bunch of elemental skills. So you're going to pretty much have 100% uptime on AoE blind. It's very nice for, you know, to get that extra evasion. Here I'm using Essence Rush, get some ES Leech, and I'm also getting Arcane Heroism. This is to gain Arcane Surge. There's no other way for this build to gain Arcane Surge because we do not use mana. So we have no mana available to us whatsoever, and that is why we link life tap support to our Wave of Conviction, Arcanist Brand, Elemental Weakness, as well as life tap support to our Steel Skin and Flame Dash. So that is so we can still use Flame Dash and things like that. So yeah, I anointed Charisma on my amulet so that I could reserve Wrath, Zealotry, and Hatred. I think that is a lot, is really worth it because that gives us an extra multiplier, right? Which would be Zealotry. Gives us another 16% multiplier as well as a lot of spell crit, which is super nice, which is also scaled by Aura effect. And you know, because we don't need Aqueous Accelerant because we already have enough Flask effect to sustain our Vaal skills 100% of the time. So yeah, I will link the POB in the description. I hope you enjoyed this showcase. I'm really much enjoying this build. I am streaming on Twitch every day, so you can check me out at twitch.tv/crouchingtuna. If you have any questions about the build or anything like that, don't be afraid to ask. I'll you know, I'm really happy that this build is actually working. And even if we're gonna be hit by mid-league nerfs, do not worry, because this ring on its own is insane, as I showcased in that map. And you do not need this 6 link, just pure greed at this point. So yeah, you can just go around with the 1 link, and then you can have another 6 link setup, maybe a guard skill or something crazy. But yeah, we're gonna have so many sockets free in this build that yeah, I look forward to maybe seeing more people playing Vaal skills, and I'm really excited about this. So thanks guys. Yep, have a good one. Love you all. Bye bye.